Welcome students. In this video, we will see chapter number 9 Economic Policy of India since 1991. See introduction. In the beginning of the last decade of 20th century, Indian economy experienced an economic crisis. At the end of June 1991, foreign currency assets declined to such an extent that it was barely enough to finance 2 weeks of imports. The annual rate of inflation reached to 16.7% in August 1991. The government expenditure was greater than its revenue due to defense expenditure, subsidies, interest on loans, etc. The positive effects of socialistic pattern of society was verge of decline. On this ground, it was necessary to bring new change in the economy. Hence, Government of India adopted a new economic policy, that means NEP, in 1991. The process of new economic policy, which started in 1985, got a momentum in 1991. The new industrial policy introduced radical changes to unshackle India's industrial economy from the cobweb of unnecessary bureaucrats control and rigidity in the government procedure. According to the new industrial policy, the state will no longer play the role of a controller and regulator, but it will act as a facilitator, coordinator, inspire, and supervisor. That means, in simple word, in the beginning of the last decade of 20th century, Indian economy experienced an economic crisis. Then, factors like decline in foreign currency assets, high rate of inflation, rise in government expenditure, etc., made it necessary to adopt a new economic policy, that means NEP, in 1991. So, accordingly to new industrial policy, the state will no longer play role of a controller and regulator, but it will act as a facilitator, coordinator, inspire, and supervisor. So students, we can see main objective of the economic policy of 1991. First objective, to plug the Indian economy into the arena of globalization. Second is to bring down the rate of inflation. Third one, to correct the disequilibrium in a balance of payment. Fourth one, to acquire higher economic growth rate. Fifth one, to build sufficient foreign exchange reserve. Next one, to achieve economic stabilization and to reduce the fiscal deficit. And next, to establish international trade relation for free flow of goods without any restrictions. And last one, to increase the participation of private sector. That means to bring down the rate of inflation, to correct the disequilibrium in the balance of payment, to acquire higher economic growth rate, to achieve economic stabilization, to reduce fiscal deficits, were some of the main objective of the economic policy of 1991. So students, we can see features of economic policy of 1991. See, first feature is delicensing. What is meant by delicensing? It means abolition of government license required to carry on any business or industrial activities. All industries except 18 specified industries of strategic importance required license. As per Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Government of India, only the following four industry required compulsory licensing. First, electric, aerospace and defense equipment. Second one, industrial explosive. Next one, hazardous chemical, drugs and pharmaceuticals. And last one, cigarettes. Next feature of economic policy of 1991, abolition of monopoly and restrictive trade practice, that means MRTP Act. Accordingly to MRTP Act, it was compulsory for large industrial houses to take the approval of central government for establishment, expansion, merge, etc. This result in slow industrial growth. Abolition of MRTP Act has encouraged industrial growth. Then next one, encouragement to small sector. The government encouraged small sectors units to attain a higher growth rate in output, employment and export sector. Its investment limit was increased from 1 crore to 5 crore. Then next one, encouraging foreign investment. Industrial policy of 1991, approval foreign direct investment, that means FDI, to encourage investment in high priority industries required high investment and technology. Initially, FDI was permitted up to 51% of total investment in selected industry. Later, this limit was raised to 74% and then 100% for specific industries. Next one, reducing role of public sector. Many changes were made in the public sector policy to include following objective. First, ending state monopoly. Second one, improving efficiency of public sector. Third one, realizing capital block in six public sectors enterprises. To encourage private sector, NEP reduced the number of industry in public sector from 70 to 8. From 2014, there are only two industrial reserve for public sector, which include railways and atomic energy. Then next one, trade liberalization. Importing licensing control have been abolished. Almost all capital goods, raw material, intermediate goods and other components were made freely importable. Established exporters are allowed to raise external credit to finance their trade. Special economic zone, that means SAGE, are set up to promote exports. The government has also introduced the concept of agro export zone as to encourage agriculture exports. Next one, reforms in insurance sector. Insurance sector was a monopoly of the government. The new policy passed Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority Act, that means IRDA, in 1999 to introduce reforms in this sector. The IRDA has given license to many private companies to enter insurance business. This has ended the monopoly of government in this sector. And last one, reforms in financial sector. Earlier, only cooperative banks and public sector banks were permitted to do banking business in the financial sector. The new economic policy has also permitted to enter new private banks and foreigner banks. Okay, students, this is the most important point in this chapter. Okay, do you understand? Okay, students, we will see components of new economic policy. That means we can see new economic policy has three components. First, liberalization, privatization, globalization. So, we will see liberalization. See, meaning of liberalization. Liberalization refers to economic freedom or freedom for economic decisions. It means producers, consumer and owner of the factor of production are free to take decisions to promote their self-interest. Adam Smith in his book Wealth of Nations suggested that economic liberalization is the best economic policy to promote economic growth and well-being of the people. The economic policy which leads to reduction if not removal of barrier in the working of market mechanism and free competition is called economic liberalization. So, measures taken for liberalization. There are some measures taken for liberalization. First is a flexibility of interest rate. Under the policy of liberalization, commercial banks have the freedom to determine the rate of interest depending upon the market force of demand and supply. Then, second measures freedom for expansion of industries. In this new liberalization era, the industries are free to diversify their production capacity and reduce the cost of production. Earlier government used to fix the maximum limit of production capacity. No industry could produce beyond that limit. Now the industry are free to decide their own production limit on the basis of market requirement. Then next one, abolition of monopoly and restrictive trade practice. Accordingly to MRTP Act of 1969, all those companies have assets worth rupees 100 crores and more were classified as MRTP firms and were subject to several restrictions. Now these firms have the freedom to take investment decisions. Then reforms in FERA, that means replace in FEMA. See, to bring about flexibility in the law relating to foreign exchange. Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, that means FERA, was replaced by Foreign Exchange Management Act, that means FEMA. This would encourage international trade. Next one, investment in infrastructure. Infrastructure was open to domestic as well as foreign investors. They could invest in rail, roads, and power projects. Next one, encouragement to foreign technology. Liberalization has also the use of foreign technology in high priority industries. This helps to reduce the cost and make the industries competitive. And last one, SEBI. SEBI means Security and Exchange Board of India. It was established on 12th April 1992. This step was introduced to protect the interest of investors in securities, promote development and regulated the securities market. This is a liberalization, and we will see measures taken for liberalization. So second component is a privatization. See, what is meant by privatization? Privatization means transfer of ownership from public to private sector. In the broader sense, it means introduction of private management and control with or without change in ownership of public enterprises. In simple words, privatization refers to a process that reduces the involvement the public sector and increase that to private sector in economic activities. So students, we can see measures taken for privatization. First, disinvestment. It is the act of selling shares of sick public sector's unit to the private sector. For example, disinvestment of Maruti, ITDC, hotels, IPCLs, VSNLs, etc. Then second one, dereservation policy. The industrial policy of 1956 reserved 70 industry for the public sector. New economic policy reduced the number to 8, gradually to 3 and then 2. At present, only railway transport and atomic energy are reserved for the public sector. Then third one, establishment of BIFR, that means Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstructions. NEP has set up Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstructions to take decisions regarding sick public sector unit. By the end of 1996, 188 cases of sick public sector where public sector units were referred to BIFR. Then creation of National Renewable Board NRB. When the loss-making public sector units are closed, the worker have to face the problem of unemployment and poverty. To solve this problem, government has created National Renewal Board. National Renewal Board take the responsibility of providing compensation to the retrenched workers as well as those seeking voluntary retirement. And next one, Navratna status. During 1997 to 1908, 9 public sector units were selected and given the status of Navratna on the basis of their performance. These Navratna were given full financial and managerial autonomy. These Navratna are as follows. First, IOC, that means Indian Oil Corporation. Second, ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. Third one, HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited. Fourth one, BPCL, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. Fifth one, IPCL, Indian Petrochemicals Corporation Limited. 6. VSNL, Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited. 7 1. BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited. 8. SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited. And last one, ninth, NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation. At present, public sector unit PSU have been further categorized into categorized into Mini Ratna and Maharatna. See, Mini Ratna, that means Mini Ratna companies. The concept of Mini Ratna was introduced by the Government of India in 2002. Mini Ratnas are further divided into two categories. First, Mini Ratna, a public sector company should have made profit in the last 3 years continuously. The pre-tax profit should have been 30 crores or more in at least one of 3 years. Mini Ratna category second. Public sector companies can be called as Mini Ratna category second if has continuous made profit for last 3 years as well as it has a positive net worth. And Maharatna companies. The Maharatna categories for central public sector enterprises was introduction in 2009 with the objective to empower mega CPSEs to expand their operations and emerge as global grain or become Indian multinational companies. Okay students, remaining part next video. Thank you.